Hey, Paul.
Hello, Norm. How are you?
Paul, wait up. I gotta talk to you a second. Oh, Paul, come on. You always have to rush like this.
Well, we're close to airtime, Norm. What's up?
You know damn well what's up. It's these last-minute changes. Now, why do we have to go through this every single week?
Why should this week be any different from the rest of them? What do you want me to tell him?
All right, so first off, you cannot use the Biltmore Hotel.
Okay, it's out.
All right, second off, no Columbia Broadcasting System. I suggest a broadcasting building.
Okay, broadcasting building it is.
Oh, one more thing. What is it? Oh, yes. Paul, for Pete's sake. No Roosevelt.
No Roosevelt? Why?
Oh, you've got to be able to figure that out. I mean, seriously, just think for a second. Does anyone in this theater company ever just think? I mean it, Paul. No Roosevelt. Come on now. It's not the end of the world.
Is that some kind of joke?
You have to get so upset.
I'll tell you why I get so upset. It's because we've got an actor that does a great Roosevelt. That's why. And he's gonna hit the ceiling. That's why.
I'm sorry. This is just how it's gotta be.
Paul, I need to listen to something, please. Just a second.
Anything else?
No, that's as far as continuity is concerned.
Okay, now listen.
We do have some notes about programming.
Programming.
They feel that since Charlie McCarthy is competing tonight, they want something a little bit more dramatic.
What do you think?
Sounds great. What about the Martian cylinder?
What?
The Martian cylinder?
Something more
turn
dramatic
around.
than a weather
Your turn,
report.
Norman, turn around.
A dance program, maybe?
Okay, Norman, could you do me a favor and just, for a second, please? What do you think?
Sounds like you're trying to open a pickle jar. What is it? No, it's gotta be terrifying. Use for butters. It hasn't been open in a million light years.
What about the Count of Monte Cristo, the prison sound effects?
You're all right, Norm.
Not the toilet again.
No, it worked now. You can do it. I know you can. Listen, just trust me. Use
from here to
the toilet.
It's okay. You can use the toilet.
Jed,
I didn't buy it.
here, run a wire to the men's room. Again.
Howard.
Shh. And then tag it with, in the 39th year of the 20th century came the Great Disillusionment. And then blend it all into the rest. All right, what's next?
Orson wants us to change the location of the landing site from Newark to some other small town.
What? That changes the whole military strike in the first sequence.
Well, Newark is spared.
Well, I promised it to the Martians.
Where to?
Right there.
Grover's Mill?
Grover's Mill. I like it. Sounds real.
I have no idea how you came up with all this in 6 days, Howard.
Well, Orson said the world was created in 6 days, so it should take no less to destroy it. And you're leaning on Princeton Conservatory.
Sorry about that. Hey, Howard, I was wondering, how'd you come to pick New Jersey in the first place?
Well, I got lost there last weekend. They gave me that map at the gas station. What's next?
Hausman wants us to change the description of the Martian machine to something...
Yeah. Something big on metal legs.
Wonder how they're going to take all this.
I don't know. Every time I turn on the radio, I don't know what's going on over there in Europe. However, here in the real world, the Martian cylinder seems to be rising out of the pit on a giant metal framework.
There's going to be another war, isn't there?
So what if there is? Doesn't mean we're gonna be in it. All I know is we got a farm to run right here.
I know, but it's worrisome all the same. Tommy turns 18 next year. He's talking about going to Canada to join up.
He wouldn't give up his citizenship.
I don't know. He talks real serious about it. You know how he is. His great ideals, liberty and justice.
Yeah, well, he ain't 18. Can't go up there till he is.
Okay, do it now. No. Try a bigger jar. Try the biggest jar you've got. Paul! Paul! Ooh, don't touch me with that. Paul! Paul, I need the revised cue sheets.
1 minute.
Paul, I need those cue sheets. Now. Today would be nice.
Stay tuned. In 15 minutes, it's Orson Welles and the Mercury Theatre's own dramatization of H.G. Wells' War of the Worlds.
Yeah, right, listen to that.
I want to hear it. This is one of my favorite shows.
Certainly. A man that is taking over the world, and you want to listen to a fantasy.
Mr. Musgrave doesn't think he's mad. Mr. Musgrave thinks
Mr.
that.
Musgrave doesn't think he's mad. Mr. Musgrave doesn't think. I'm sorry, sir. I thought that since it is of world importance that perhaps some of your guests might be interested.
To that, I think not. They've heard enough of the wartime scare bugaboo birds and days.
They do say that Mr. Hitler will be giving a final ultimatum in tonight's speech.
Hitler ultimatum. Nonsense. Don't be ridiculous. These people understand he simply wants living room for his people. He saved them from economic disaster, the Bolshevik threat. They like him. He's got the trains running on time.
The revised cue sheets.
Jimmy's out with influenza.
Hey, Howard, it looks like you get to be an actor tonight.
The microphone.
You don't understand. Harry!
I really have it done good. Listen, why don't I do some of it for you?
It's from the network. Norman says he can't do Roosevelt.
Well, it's an insult. That's what it is. I'm going to talk to Orson about it. We'll see what he has to say.
The Secretary of the Interior would be acceptable for continuity.
Secretary of the Interior? I don't know what he looks like, much less what he sounds like. No, I did Roosevelt. That's it.
There's no way on this one, Orson. It's all right.
Secretary of the Interior.
And what does he sound like?
Orson said he sounds like Roosevelt.
We want a good one tonight?
I think it's going to be another good night for Charlie McCarthy.
Please stand by.
The Columbia Broadcasting System and its affiliated stations present Orson Welles and the Mercury Theatre on the air in The War of the Worlds by H.G. Wells. Ladies and gentlemen, the director of the Mercury Theatre and star of these broadcasts, Orson Welles.
We now know that in the early years of the 20th century, this world was being watched closely by intelligences greater than man's, and yet as mortal as his own. We now know that as human beings busied themselves about their various concerns, they were being scrutinized and studied, perhaps almost as narrowly as a man with the microscope might scrutinize the transient creatures that swim and multiply in a drop of water. With infinite complacence, people went to and fro over the earth about their little affairs, serene in the assurance of their dominion over this small, spinning fragment of solar driftwood, which, by chance or design, man has inherited out of the dark mystery of space and time. In the 39th year of the 20th century came the Great Disillusionment. It was near the end of October. Business was better. The war scare was over. More men were back at work. Sales were picking up. On this particular evening, October 30th, the Crosley service estimated that 32 million people were listening in on radios.
For the next 24 hours, not much change in temperature. A slight atmospheric disturbance of undetermined origin is reported over Nova Scotia, bringing in a low-pressure area to move down rather rapidly over the northeastern states, bringing a forecast of rain accompanied by winds of light gale force. Maximum temperature 66, minimum 48. This weather report comes to you from the Government Weather Bureau. We take you now to the Meridian Room in the Hotel Park Plaza in downtown New York, where you'll be entertained by the music of Ramon Raquello and his orchestra.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. From the Meridian Room in the Park Plaza Hotel in New York City, we bring you the music of Ramon Raquello and his orchestra. With a touch of the Spanish, Ramon Raquello leads off with La Conversita.
Stevenson, find some music on the radio. The guests need something to listen to.
Ladies and gentlemen, we interrupt our program of dance music to bring you a special bulletin from the Intercontinental Radio News. At 20 minutes before 8 Central Time, Professor Farrell of the Mount Jennings Observatory, Chicago, Illinois, reported observing several explosions of incandescent gas occurring at regular intervals on the planet Mars. The spectroscope indicates the gas to be hydrogen and moving towards the Earth with enormous velocity. Professor Pearson of the observatory at Princeton confirms Farrell's observation and describes the phenomenon as, quote, like a jet of blue flame shot from a gun, unquote. We now return you to the music of Ramon Raquello, playing for you in the Meridian Room of the Park Plaza Hotel situated in downtown New York.
Tune that never loses favor, the ever-popular Stardust, Ramon Raquello and his orchestra.
Ladies and gentlemen, following on the news given in our bulletin a moment ago, the Government Meteorological Bureau has requested the large observatories of the country to keep an astronomical watch on any further disturbances occurring on the planet Mars. Due to the unusual nature of this occurrence, we've arranged an interview with a noted astronomer, Professor Pearson, who will give us his view on the event. In a few moments, we will take you to the Princeton Observatory at Princeton, New Jersey. We return you until then to the music of Ramon Raquello and his orchestra. We are are ready now to take you to the Princeton Observatory at Princeton, where Carl Phillips, our commentator, will interview Professor Richard Pearson, famous astronomer. We take you now to Princeton, New Jersey.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Carl Phillips speaking to you from the Observatory of Princeton.
Darling, must we listen to this? It's such a bore. Well, I'm going to go get some air.
I'm standing in a large semicircular room, pitch black except for an oblong split in the ceiling. Through this opening I can see a sprinkling of stars that cast a kind of frosty glow over the intricate mechanism of the huge telescope. The ticking sound you hear is the vibration of the clockwork. Professor Pearson stands directly above me on a small platform peering through the giant lens. I ask you to be patient, ladies and gentlemen, during any delay that may arise during our interview. Besides his ceaseless watch of the heavens, Professor Pearson may be interrupted by telephone or other communications. During this period, he is in constant touch with the astronomical centers of the world. Professor, may I begin our questions?
At any time, Mr. Phillips.
Professor, would you please tell our radio audience exactly what you see as you observe the planet Mars through your telescope?
Nothing unusual at the moment, Mr. Phillips. A red disk swimming in a blue sea. Transverse stripes across the disk. Quite distinct now because Mars happens to be at the point nearest the Earth, in opposition, as we call it.
In your opinion, what do these transverse stripes signify, Professor Pearson?
Not canals, I can assure you, Mr. Phillips.
I see.
Although that's the popular conjecture of those who imagine Mars to be inhabited. From a scientific viewpoint, the stripes are merely the result of atmospheric conditions peculiar to the planet.
Then you're quite convinced as a scientist that living intelligence as we know it does not exist on Mars?
I'd say the chances against it are 1,000 to 1.
And yet, how do you account for those gas eruptions occurring on the surface of the planet at regular intervals?
Mr. Phillips, I cannot account for it.
By the way, Professor, for the benefit of our listeners, how far is Mars from the Earth?
Approximately 40 million miles.
That seems safe enough distance.
Thank you.
Well, just a minute. Ladies and gentlemen, someone has just handed Professor Pearson a message. While he reads it, let me remind you that we are speaking to you from the observatory in Princeton, New Jersey, where we are interviewing the world-famous astronomer, Professor Pearson. Oh, one moment, please. Professor Pearson has passed me a message which he has just received. Professor, may I read the message to the listening audience?
Certainly, Mr. Phillips.
Ladies and gentlemen, I shall read you a wire addressed to Professor Pearson from Dr. Gray of the National History Museum, New York. Quote, 9:15 Eastern Standard Time. Seismograph registered shock of almost earthquake intensity occurring within a radius of 20 miles of Princeton. Please investigate. Signed, Lloyd Gray, Chief of Astronomical Division. Unquote. Professor Pearson, could this occurrence possibly have something to do with the disturbances observed on the planet Mars?
Hardly, Mr. Phillips. This is probably a meteorite of unusual size, and its arrival at this particular time is merely a coincidence. However, we shall conduct a search as soon as daylight permits.
Thank you, Professor. Ladies and gentlemen, for the past 10 minutes we have been speaking to you from the observatory at Princeton, bringing you a special interview with Professor Pearson, noted astronomer. This is Carl Phillips speaking. We are returning you now to our New York studio.
Ladies and gentlemen, here's the latest bulletin from the Intercontinental Radio News. Toronto, Canada. Professor Morris of Macmillan University reports observing a total of 3 explosions on the planet Mars between the hours of 7:45 p.m. and 9:20 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. This confirms the earlier reports received from American observatories.
Hey, Charlie McCarthy! Irma, it's Charlie McCarthy! Oh, dang, I missed the opening.
He'll be back.
Doctors in all branches of medicine, doctors in all parts of the country were asked, "What cigarette do you smoke, doctor?" Once again, the brand named most was Camel. Yes, according to this repeated nationwide survey, more doctors smoke Camels than any other cigarette.
I ain't listening to that.
Now, near home comes a special bulletin from Trenton, New Jersey. It is reported that at 8:50 p.m.
Turn it back.
What for?
I want to hear that report.
A huge, flaming object, believed to be a meteorite, fell on a farm in the neighborhood of Grover's Mill, New Jersey, 22 miles from Trenton. The flash in the sky was visible within a radius of several hundred miles, and the noise of the impact was heard as far north as Elizabeth. We have dispatched a special mobile unit to the scene, and we'll have our commentator, Carl Phillips, give you a word picture of the scene as soon as he can reach there from Princeton. In the meantime, we take you to the Hotel Martinet in Brooklyn, where Bobby Millett and his orchestra are offering a program of dance music. We take you now to Grover's Mill, New Jersey.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Carl Phillips again out of the Wilmot Farm, Grover's Mill, New Jersey. Professor Pearson and myself made the 11 miles from Princeton in 10 minutes. Well, I hardly know where to begin. Paint for you a word picture of the strange scene before my eyes, like something out of a modern Arabian Nights. Well, I just got here. I haven't had a chance to look around yet. I guess that's it. Yes, I guess that's the thing directly in front of me. Half buried in a vast pit. Must have struck with terrific force. The ground is covered with splinters of a tree. It must have struck on its way down. What I can see of the object itself doesn't look very much like a meteor, at least not the meteors I've seen. It looks more like a huge cylinder. It has a diameter of... What would you say, Professor Pearson?
What's that?
What would you say? What is the diameter of this?
About 30 yards.
About 30 yards. Metal on the sheath as well. I've never seen anything like it. The color is sort of yellowish white. Curious spectators are now pressing close to the object, in spite of the efforts of the police to keep them back. They're getting in front of my line of vision. Would you mind standing to one side, please?
One side, stay to one side.
I guess that's enough of that.
What are you doing?
I thought you wanted to hear Charlie McCarthy.
Can't you forget Charlie McCarthy for once? There's something going on in our backyard. Ain't you interested?
While the policemen are pushing the crowd back, here's Mr. Wilmoth, owner of the farm here. He may have some interesting facts to add. Mr. Wilmoth, would you please tell the radio audience as much as you remember of this rather unusual visitor that dropped in your backyard? Step closer, please. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Mr. Wilmoth.
Well, I was listening to the radio.
Closer and louder, please.
Pardon me?
Louder, please, and closer.
Yes, sir. So, I was sitting in my chair listening to the radio. I was listening to that Princeton fellow talking about Mars, and I was kind of half dozing. And
Yeah, Mr. Wilmoth, and then what happened?
You ever heard of anybody named Wilmoth?
I don't know. Maybe he meant Wilson. Can't figure how he missed that.
Well, I was just sitting in the chair, just kind of half dozing, and
Yes, Mr. Wilmoth, and then you saw something?
No, not at first. I heard something.
And what did you hear?
I heard a loud hissing sound, kind of like this. Like a 4th of July rocket.
Yes, then what?
I looked out the window. I could have sworn I was dreaming.
Yes.
I saw this green haze, and then zingo! Something smacked the ground, knocked me clear out of my chair.
Well, were you frightened, Mr. Wilmoth?
Well, I'm not too sure about that. I guess I was riled.
Thank you, Mr. Wilmoth. Thank you very much.
You want me to tell you some more?
No. That's quite all right. That's plenty. Ladies and gentlemen, you've just heard Mr. Wilmoth, owner of the farm where this thing has fallen. I wish I could convey the atmosphere, the background of this fantastic scene. Hundreds of cars are parked in the field back of us, and the police are trying to rope off the roadway leading into the farm, but it's no use. They're breaking right through. Car's headlights throw an enormous spotlight on the pit where the object's half buried. Now, some of the more daring souls are now venturing near the edge. Their silhouettes stand out against the metal sheen. One man wants to touch the thing. He's having an argument with policemen.
No, just trying to see what's...
Stay out of
just trying to see what's
this! The policeman wins. Now, ladies and gentlemen, there's something I haven't mentioned in all this excitement, but now it's becoming more distinct. Perhaps you've got it already on your radio. Listen, please.
What is that?
Do you hear it? It's a curious humming sound that seems to come from inside the object. I'll move the microphone nearer now. Now we're not more than 25 feet away. Can you hear it now? Oh, Professor Pearson.
Yes, Mr. Phillips.
Can you tell us the meaning of that scraping sound inside the thing?
Possibly the unequal cooling of its surface.
I see. Do you still think it's a meteor, Professor?
It's just a radio show. So when are you going to tell him?
I'll tell him when he asks me.
I don't know what to think. The metal casing is definitely extraterrestrial, not found on this Earth. Friction with the Earth's surface, atmosphere, and other factors usually tears holes in a meteorite. This thing is smooth, however, and as you can see, of cylindrical shape.
Just a minute. Something's happening. Ladies and gentlemen, this is terrific. The end of the thing is beginning to flake off.
Stand back there. People stand back, I tell you.
Thing must be hollow.
People back! Keep the minutes back!
She's up! The top's loose! Look out! Stand back!
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the most terrifying thing I have ever witnessed. Wait a minute. Something's crawling out of the hollow top. Someone or something. I can see peering out of that black hole two luminous discs. Are they eyes? It might be a face. It might be... Oh, good heavens. Something's wriggling out of the shadow like a gray snake. Now it's another one, another one, another one. They look like tentacles to me. I can see the thing's body now. It's large. Large as a bear, and it glistens like wet leather. But that face... Ladies and gentlemen, it's indescribable. I can hardly force myself to keep looking at it. It's so awful. The eyes are black and gleam like a serpent. The mouth is V-shaped with saliva dripping from its rimless lips. It seems to quiver and pulsate. The monster, whatever it is, can hardly move. It seems weighed down by possibly gravity or something. The thing's rising up now, and the crowd crawls back now. They've seen plenty. This is the most extraordinary experience, ladies and gentlemen. I can't find words. I'll pull this microphone with me as I talk. I'll have to stop the description until I can take a new position. Hold on, will you please? I'll be right back in a minute.
Oh my God, Tom, what's happening?
Nothing. Just take it easy.
Maybe there's something else.
Don't touch that
Maybe
dial.
there's something else on another station. They might know more.
Charlie, what have you been doing since you've been in town here?
Well, I've been walking in Central Park all day with the girls.
Turn it back, will you? They don't know nothing.
Wait a minute.
Oh, come on, Irma.
Okay.
Did you lose it?
We now return you to Carl Phillips at Grover's Mill.
Ladies and gentlemen, am I on? Ladies and gentlemen, here I am, back of a stone wall that adjoins Mr. Wilmot's garden. From here I get a sweep of the whole scene. I'll give you every detail as long as I can talk and as long as I can see. More state police have arrived. They're drawing up a cordon in front of the pit, about 30 of them. No need to push the crowd back now. They're willing to keep their distance. The captain is conferring with someone. We can't quite see who. Oh yes, I believe it's Professor Pearson. Yes, it is. And now they've parted. The professor moves around one side, studying the object, while the captain and two policemen advance with something in their hands. I can see it now. It's a white handkerchief tied to a pole, a flag of truce. Those creatures know what that means, what anything means. Wait a minute, something's happening. A huddled shape is rising out of the pit. I can make out a small beam of light against the mirror. What's that? There's a jet of flame springing from that mirror, and it leaps right at the advancing men. There's it strikes them head on. Good Lord, they're turning into flames! Ah! The whole field's caught fire! Ah! The woods, the barns, the gas tanks of automobiles. It's spreading everywhere. It's coming this way. About 20 yards to my right.
Ladies and gentlemen, due to circumstances beyond our control, we are unable to continue the broadcast from Grover's Mill. Evidently, there's been some difficulty with our field transmission. However, we will return to that point at the earliest opportunity. In the meantime, we have a late bulletin from San Diego, California. Professor Indelkoffer, speaking at a dinner of the California Astronomical Society, expressed the opinion that the explosions on Mars are undoubtedly nothing more than severe volcanic disturbances on the surface of the planet. We continue now with our piano interlude.
Columbia Broadcasting System? What? No, not that I know of. I believe it's only a play. That's right. That's what's on our program schedule. You're welcome.
Ladies and gentlemen, I've just been handed the message that came in from Grover's Mill by telephone. Just one moment, please. At least 40 people, including 6 state troopers, lie dead in a field east of the village of Grover's Mill. Their bodies burned and distorted beyond all possible recognition. The next voice you hear will be that of Brigadier General Montgomery Smith, commander of the state militia at Trenton, New Jersey.
I have been requested by the governor of New Jersey to place the counties of Mercer, Middlesex, as far west as Princeton, and east of Jamesburg under martial law. No one will be permitted to enter the area except by special pass issued by state or military authorities. 4 companies of state militias are proceeding from Trenton to Grover's Mill and will aid in the evacuation of homes within the military operations. Thank you.
You have just been listening to General Montgomery Smith, commanding the state militia at Trenton. In the meantime, further details of the catastrophe at Grover's Mill are coming in. The strange creatures, after unleashing their deadly assault, crawled back in their pit and made no attempt to prevent the efforts of firemen to recover the bodies and extinguish the fires. The combined fire departments of Mercer County are fighting the flames, which menace the entire countryside. We have been unable to establish any contact with our mobile unit at Grover's Mill, but we hope to be able to return you there at the earliest possible moment. In the meantime, we take you to... Just one moment, please. We found him. Who's the professor? He's alive. He's alive. Ladies and gentlemen, I have just been informed we have finally established communication with an eyewitness of the tragedy. Professor Pearson has been located in a farmhouse near Grover's Mill, where he has established an emergency observation post. As a scientist, he will give you his explanation of this calamity. The next voice you hear will be that of Professor Pearson, brought to you by the direct wire. Professor Pearson.
Of the creatures in the rocket cylinder at Grover's Mill, I can give you no authoritative information, either to their nature, their origin, or their purposes here on Earth. Of their destructive instrument, I might venture some conjectural explanation. For want of a better term, I shall refer to the mysterious weapon as a heat ray. It's all too evident that these creatures have scientific knowledge far in advance of our own. It's my guess that in some way they are able to generate an intense heat in a chamber of practically absolute non-conductivity. The intense heat they project in a parallel beam against any object they choose by means of a highly polished parabolic mirror of unknown composition, much as the mirror of a lighthouse projects a beam of light. That is my conjecture of the origin of the heat ray.
Thank you, Professor Pearson. Ladies and gentlemen, here is a bulletin from Trenton. It is A brief statement informing us that the charred body of Carl Phillips has been identified in a Trenton hospital. Now here's another bulletin from Washington, D.C. The Office of the Director of the National Red Cross reports 10 units of Red Cross emergency workers have been assigned to the headquarters of the state militia stationed outside of Grover's Mill, New Jersey. Here's a bulletin from State Police. Princeton Junction. The fires at Grover's Mill and vicinity are now under control. Scouts report all quiet in the pit, and there was no sign of life appearing from the mouth of the cylinder. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we have a special statement from Mr. Harold McDonald, Vice President in charge of operations.
We received a request from the state militia at Trenton to place at their disposal our entire broadcasting facilities. In view of the gravity of the situation, and believing that radio has a responsibility to serve in the public interest at all times, we are turning over our facilities to the state militia at Trenton.
It's about time the military got involved.
Mr. Musgrave.
Shh. We take you now to the field headquarters of the state militia stationed near Grover's Mill, New Jersey.
This is Captain Lansing of the Signal Corps, attached to the state militia, now engaged in military operations in the vicinity of Grover's Mill. The situation arising from the presence of unidentified individuals is now under complete control. The cylindrical object, which lies in a pit directly below our position, is surrounded on all sides by 8 battalions of infantry, without heavy field pieces, but adequately armed with rifles and machine guns. All cause for alarm, if ever such cause existed, is now entirely unjustified. The things, whatever they are, do not even venture to poke their heads above the pit. I can see their hiding place plainly in the glare of the searchlights. With all their reported resources, these creatures can scarcely stand up against heavy machine gun fire. Anyway, it's an interesting outing for the troops. I can make out their khaki uniforms crossing back and forth in front of the lights. It looks almost like a real war. There appears to be some slight smoke bordering the Millstone River. Probably fire started by campers.
How are we going to stop these things with just a shotgun and a pistol?
Don't you worry about a thing, Irma.
Shouldn't we wait for Tommy?
Nah, we'll be fine. You just keep your eyes peeled. And don't you worry about that death ray. Let's just find him first, and then we'll give them something to worry about.
Mr. Musgrave, sir, please.
Stevenson, don't get involved with things you don't understand.
Well, we ought to see some action soon. One of the companies is deploying on the left flank. A quick thrust and it will all be over. Now wait a minute. I see something on top of the cylinder. No, it's nothing but a shadow. Now the troops are on the edge of the Wilmot farm. 7,000 armed men, closing in on some old metal too. A tub, rather. Wait, that wasn't a shadow. It's something moving, some sort of solid metal, kind of a shield-like affair rising up out of the cylinder. It's going higher, and higher. Why, it's standing on legs, actually rearing up on some sort of metal framework. Now it's reaching above the trees, and the searchlights are on it. Hold on!
Ladies and gentlemen, I have a grave announcement to make. Incredible as it may seem, both the observations of science and the evidence of our own eyes lead to the inescapable assumption that those strange beings who landed in the Jersey farmlands tonight are the vanguard of an invading army from the planet Mars. The battle which took place tonight at Grover's Mill has ended in one of the most startling defeats ever suffered by an army in modern times. 7,000 men, armed with rifles and machine guns pitted against a single fighting machine from the invaders from Mars. 100 120 known survivors. The rest, strewn over the battlefield from Grover's Mill to Plainsboro, crushed and trampled to death under the metal feet of the monster, or burned to cinders by its heat ray. The monster is now in control of the middle section of New Jersey and has effectively cut the state through its center. Communication lines are down from Pennsylvania to the Atlantic Ocean.
Stevenson. Sir? Call Chief Lawrence at the police station.
Yes, sir.
Railroad tracks are torn and service from New York to Philadelphia discontinued except routing some of the trains through Allentown and Phoenixville. Highways to the north, south, and west are clogged with frantic human traffic. Police and Army reserves are unable to control the madfest. By morning, the fugitives will swell Philadelphia, Camden, and Trenton. It is estimated to twice their normal populations. Martial law prevails throughout New Jersey and eastern Pennsylvania. At this time, we take you to Washington for a special broadcast on the national emergency. The Secretary of the Interior.
Citizens of the nation, I shall not try to conceal the gravity of the situation that confronts the country, nor the concern of your government in protecting the lives and property of its people.
It's Roosevelt.
What's that idiot doing now?
Sir, there's no answer.
However, I wish to impress upon you, private citizens and public officials, all of you, the urgent need of calm and resourceful action. Fortunately, this formidable enemy is still confined to a comparatively small area, and we may place our faith in the military forces to keep them there. In the meantime, placing our faith in God, we must continue the performance of our duties, each and every one of us, so that way we may confront this destructive adversary with a nation united, courageous, and consecrated to the preservation of human supremacy on this earth. I thank you.
You have just heard the Secretary of the Interior speaking from Washington. Bulletins, too numerous to read, are piling up here in the studio. We are informed that the central portion of New Jersey is blacked out from radio communication due to the effect of the heat ray upon power lines and electrical equipment. Here's a special bulletin from New York. Cables have been received from English, French, and German scientific bodies offering assistance. Astronomers report continued gas outbursts at regular intervals on the planet Mars. The majority voice the opinion that the enemy will soon be reinforced by additional rocket machines. There have been several attempts made to locate Professor Pearson of Princeton, who has observed Martians at close range. It is feared he was lost in the recent Langham Field, Virginia. Scouting planes report 3 Martian machines visible above treetops moving north towards Somerville, with populations fleeing ahead of them. The heat ray is not in use, although advancing at express train speeds. Invaders pick their way carefully.
Go get the penny. Right, hurry, go get the penny. You know what? Silver, more important, get the silver.
They seem to be making a conscious effort to avoid the destruction of cities and countryside. However, they stop to uproot power lines, bridges, and railroad tracks. Their apparent objective is to crush resistance, paralyze communication, and disorganize human society. Here's a bulletin from Baskin Ridge, New Jersey. Coon hunters have stumbled on a second Martian cylinder, similar to the first embedded in the Great Swamp 20 miles south of Morristown. Here's a bulletin from Basking Ridge, New Jersey. Army field pieces are proceeding from Newark to blow up second invading unit before cylinder can be opened and fighting machine ramped. They're taking up position in the foothills of the Watchung Mountains. Another bulletin from Langham Field, Virginia. Scouting planes report enemy machines, now 3 in number, moving northwards, increasing speed, kicking over houses and trees, and in evident haste to form a conjunction with their allies south of Morristown. The machines also sighted by telephone operator east of Middlesex within 10 miles of Plainsfield. Here's a bulletin from Winstonfield, Long Island. The fleet of Army bombers is carrying heavy explosives, flying north in pursuit of enemy. Scouting planes active guides, they keep their enemy in sight. Just a moment, please, ladies and gentlemen. We're running special wires to the artillery line in adjacent village to give you direct reports in the zone of the advancing enemy. First, we take you to the 22nd Field Artillery located in the Watchung Mountains.
Range, 32 meters.
32 meters.
Projection, 39 degrees.
39 degrees.
Fire!
140 yards to the right, sir.
Shift range, 31 meters.
31 meters.
Projection, 27 degrees.
27 degrees.
Fire!
Wait, sir. We got the tripod of one of them. They've stopped. The others are trying to repair it.
Quick, get the range. Shift, 30 meters.
30 meters.
Projection, 37 degrees.
37 degrees.
Fire!
You can't see the shell land, sir. They're letting off a smoke.
What is it?
A black smoke, sir. Moving this way. Lying close to the ground and moving fast.
Put on gas masks.
What? Yes. What? No. Huh? Well, how could they? What? Well, what do you want me to do about it? Okay. I will see what I can do. Paul, we got trouble.
What is it now?
Get ready. Shift range, 27
Look,
meters.
people are taking this seriously.
Projection,
That's
44 degrees.
ridiculous!
We gotta do something about it.
Well, we'll give them this.
Well, where?
Where else at the station?
Get the range.
23 meters.
23 meters.
Stevenson, don't just stand there. Call somebody.
Mr. Musgrave, sir, perhaps we're reacting too precipitously?
What are you talking about?
Perhaps we should try to understand them.
Understand who?
Well, the Martians. They may have been forced into this course of action by circumstances beyond their control. They may be just looking for some Lebensraum.
You're mad!
They might be trying to help us, pull us up by our bootstraps. Maybe they could get us to run our trains on time.
It's just a play. Don't get it.
Army bombing plane B-843 off Bayonne, New Jersey. Lieutenant Bott reporting 8 Army bombers. Reporting to Command of Fairfax, Langham Field. This is Bott reporting to Command of Fairfax, Langham Field. Enemy tripod machine now sighted and reinforced by 3 machines with Morristown cylinder. 6 altogether. 1 machine partially crippled, believed to be hit by a shell by Army gun in the Watchung Mountains. Guns now appear silent. Heavy black fog hangs close to the earth of extreme density. Nature unknown. No sign of heat ray. Enemy now turns east, crossing Passaic River into the Jersey marshes. On the strata of the Pulaski Skyway, evident objective, New York City. They're pushing down a hydrogen power station now. The machines are close together. We're ready to strike. Planes circling and ready to attack. 1,000 yards will be over the first. 800, 600, 400, 200. There they go! The giant arm raise! Green flag! The spraying of the flame! 2,000 feet! Engine given out! No chance to release bombs! One being lit! Drop on! Plane it all! We're down on the first one now! Engine's gone! 800!
No, we haven't heard anything from the airport. No, it's just a play. No need to call the police. Columbia Broadcasting System. No, it's just a play. Everyone's acting like the world is coming to an end. What the hell are they doing out there?
This is Bayonne, New Jersey, calling Langham Field. This is Bayonne, New Jersey, calling Langham Field. Come in, please.
This is Langham Field. Go ahead.
8 Army bombers in engagement with enemy tripod machines over Jersey Flats. Engines incapacitated by heat ray. All crashed. 1 enemy machine destroyed. Enemy now discharging heavy black smoke in direction of...
This is Newark, New Jersey. This is Newark, New Jersey. Warning. Poisonous black smoke pouring in from Jersey marshes. Reaches South Street. Gas masks useless. Urge population to move into open spaces. Automobiles use Route 7, 23, 24. Avoid congested areas. Smoke now spreading over Raymond Boulevard.
2X2L, calling, CQ. 2X2L, calling, CQ. 2X2L, calling, 8X3R, come in please.
This is 8X3R coming back at 2X2L.
How's reception? How's reception? Okay, please. Where are you, 8X3R? What's the matter? Where are you?
I'm speaking from the roof of Broadcasting Building, New York City. The bells you hear are ringing to warn the people to evacuate the city as the Martians approach. Estimated in last 2 hours, 3 million people have moved out along roads to the north. Hutchinson River Parkway still kept open for motor traffic. Avoid bridges to Long Island, hopelessly jammed. All communication with Jersey Shore closed 10 minutes ago. No more defenses. Our army is wiped out. Artillery, Air Force, everything wiped out. This may be the last broadcast. We'll stay here to the end. People are holding service here below us in the cathedral. Now I look down the harbor, all manner of boats, overloaded with fleeing population, pulling out from docks. Streets are all jammed, noise and crowd like New Year's Eve in city. Wait a minute. The enemy is now in sight above the Palisades. 5 great machines. The first one is crossing the river. I can see it from here waiting the Hudson like a man wading across a brook. A bulletin is handed to me.
Huh? Yes. Oh, no, really? Okay, thanks. That was the switchboard. Now the police are starting to get calls in.
Look, I can't talk now. We're running about 2 minutes over.
Look, where was that disclaimer?
I didn't have time to finish it.
Martian cylinders are falling all over the country. One outside Buffalo, one in Chicago. St. Louis seem to be timed and spaced.
I'll finish this all right. Oh.
Better not screw up the second act of the show. Better not screw up the second act of the show.
Now the first machine reaches the shore. He stands watching, looking over the city. His steel.
Orson's not gonna like the disclaimer.
I know. I don't care.
It's even with the skyscrapers. He's waiting for the others. And now they rise like a line of new towers on the city's west side. Now they're lifting their metal hands. This is the end now. Smoke comes out, black smoke drifting over the city. People in the streets see it now. They're running toward the East River, thousands of them, dropping in like rats. Now the smoke's spreading faster. It's reached Times Square. People are trying to run away from it, but it's no use. They're falling like flies. Now the smoke's crossing 6th Avenue, 5th Avenue, 100 yards away. It's 50 feet.
It's 2X2L calling, CQ. 2X2L, colon, CQ. 2X2L, colon, CQ, New York. Isn't there anyone on air? Isn't there anyone on air? Isn't there anyone? 2X2L.
You are listening to a CBS presentation of Orson Welles and the Mercury Theatre on the Air in an original dramatization of The War of the Worlds by H.G. Wells. The performance will continue after a brief intermission. This is the Columbia Broadcasting System.
Go again! Go again!
We return you now to the conclusion of our performance of The War of the Worlds. We repeat, you are listening to a radio dramatization. The War of the Worlds by H.G. Wells, starring Orson Welles and the Mercury Theatre on the Air.
What are we going to do if we find them?
We're gonna defend our country. That's what we're gonna do.
But these are things, not people. They're things from outer space.
Yeah, we'll let them take a blast off my shotgun. Then we'll see what they're made of.
What's that?
Wait a minute. Easy now. Easy. Jess! Jess, is that you? Yeah, we better scout around a little bit. You go back to the truck and check the radio. Yeah, Jess, I gotcha!
As I set down these notes on paper, I'm obsessed by the thought that I may be the last living man on earth. I have been hiding in this empty house near Grover's Mill, a small island of daylight cut off by the black smoke from the rest of the world. All that happened before the arrival of these monstrous creatures in the world now seems part of another life, a life that has no continuity with the present, furtive existence of the lonely derelict who pencils these words on the back of some astronomical notes bearing the signature of Richard Pearson. I look down at my blackened hands, my torn shoes, my tattered clothes, and I try to connect them with the professor who lives at Princeton and who, on the night of October 30th, glimpsed through his telescope an orange splash of light on a distant planet. My wife, my colleagues, my students, my books, my observatory, my world. Where are they? Did they ever exist? Am I Richard Pearson? What day is it? Do days exist without calendars? Does time pass when there are no human hands left to wind the clocks?
Tom! Tom, I just heard it! It ain't real! It's a radio... Tom!
In writing down my daily life, I tell myself I shall preserve human history between the dark covers of this little book that was meant to record the movements of the stars. But to write, I must live, and to live, I must eat. I find moldy bread in the kitchen, and an orange not too spoiled to swallow. I keep watch at the window. From time to time, I catch sight of a Martian above the black smoke. The smoke still holds the house in its black coil, but at length there is a hissing sound, and suddenly I see a Martian mounted on his machine, spraying the air with a jet of steam as if to dissipate the black smoke. I watch in a corner as his huge metal legs nearly brush against the house. Exhausted by terror, I fall asleep. It's morning. Morning. Sun streams in through the window. The black cloud of gas has lifted, and the scorched meadows to the north look as though a blackened snowstorm has passed over them. I venture from the house. I make my way to a road. No traffic. Here and there, a wrecked car, baggage overturned, a blackened skeleton. I push on north. For some reason, I feel safer trailing these monsters than running away from them. And I keep a careful watch. I have seen the Martians feed. Should one of their machines appear over the top of trees, I am ready to fling myself on the earth. I come to a chestnut tree. October. Chestnuts are ripe. I fill my pockets. I must keep alive. 2 days I wander in a vague northerly direction through a desolate world. Finally, I notice a living creature, a small red squirrel in a beech tree. I stare at him in wonder. He stares back at me. I believe at that moment the animal and I shared the same emotion, the joy of finding another living being. I push on north. I find dead cows in a brackish field, and beyond the charred ruins of a dairy, the silo remains standing guard over the wasteland, like a lighthouse deserted by the sea. Astride the silo perches a weathercock. The arrow points north.
Tom!
I told you to stay by the truck!
You need to listen.
Quiet! Quiet! Can you hear that? Jess, is that you?
Tom, listen to me. I got something to
Not
tell you.
now! Just stay here! Tom! Jess! Jess! There it is, over the next ride!
There's nothing there.
Listen, what is that?
It's an irrigation pump.
I know what I hear! Hey! Hey! There it is!
It is going to cost you and Jess a lot of money to pay back Fred Maxwell for shooting up his water tower.
I guess we should have just listened to Charlie McCarthy, eh?
You should have listened to your wife.
I don't know.
Next day, I come to a city vaguely familiar in its contours, yet its buildings strangely dwarfed and leveled off, as if a giant had sliced off its highest towers with the capricious sweep of his hand. I reached the outskirts. I found Newark, undemolished, but humbled by some whim of the advancing Martians. Presently, with an odd feeling of being watched, I caught sight of something crouching in a doorway. I made a step towards it. It rose up and became a man armed with a large knife.
Stop! Where do you come from?
I come from many places. A long time ago from Princeton.
Princeton, huh? That's near Grover's Mill.
Yes.
Grover's Mill. There's no food here! This is my country! All this end of town down to the river! There's only food for one! Which way are you going?
I don't know. I guess I'm looking for people.
What's that? Did you hear something just then?
No. Only a bird. A live bird.
Yeah, you get to know that birds have shadows these days. Hey, we're in the open here. Let's crawl in this doorway here and talk.
Have you seen any Martians?
Nah, they've gone over to New York.
At night, the sky is alive with their lights, just as if people were still living in it. By daylight, you can't see them. 5 days ago, a couple of them carried something big across the flats from the airport. I think they're learning how to fly.
Fly?
Yeah, fly!
Then it's all over with humanity. Stranger, there's still you and I. 2 of us left.
Yeah, they got themselves in solid. They wrecked the greatest country in the world! Those green stars, they're probably falling somewhere every night. They've only lost one machine. There isn't anything to do. We're done. We're licked.
Where were you? You're in a uniform.
Yeah, what's left of it. I was in the militia. National Guard. That's good. There wasn't any war. Any more than there's war between men and ants.
Yes, but we're eatable ants. I found that out. What'll they do with us?
I thought it all out. Right now, we're caught as we're wanted. The Martian only has to go a few miles to get a crowd on the run. But they won't keep on doing that. They'll begin catching us, systematic-like. Keeping the best and storing us in cages and things. They haven't begun on us yet.
Not begun.
Not begun! All that's happened so far is because we don't have enough sense to keep quiet. Bothering them with guns and such stuff and losing our heads and running off in crowds. Now instead of rushing around blind, we gotta fix ourselves up. Fix ourselves up according to the way things are now. Cities, nations, civilization, progress. Done.
Yes, but if that's so, what is there to live for?
Well, there won't be any more concerts for 1,000,000 years or so, and no nice little dinners at restaurants. If it's amusement you're after, I guess the game's up.
What is there left?
Life! That's what! I want to live! Yeah, and so do you. We're not going to be exterminated. And I don't mean to be caught either. Tamed and fattened and bred like an ox.
What are you going to do?
I'm going on. Right under their feet. I got a plan. We men as men are finished. We don't know enough. We gotta learn plenty before we got a chance. And we've gotta live, keep free while we learn, see? I thought it all out, see?
Tell me the rest.
Well, it isn't all of us that are made for wild beasts. And that's what it's gotta be. That's why I watched you. Watched you! All these little office workers that used to live in these houses, they'd be no good. They haven't any stuff in them. They used to run off to work. I've seen hundreds of them running to catch their commuter's train in the morning, afraid they'd be canned if they didn't. Running back at night, afraid they won't be home in time for dinner. Oh, lives insured and little invested in case of accidents. Yeah, and on Sundays, worried about the hereafter. The Martians will be a godsend to those guys. Nice roomy cages, good food, careful breeding, no worries. Yeah, after a week or so chasing about the fields on empty stomachs, they'll come and be glad to be caught.
You've thought it all out, haven't you?
Sure, you bet I have. That isn't all. The Martians, they're going to make pets of some of them. Train them to do tricks. Who knows, get sentimental over the pet boy who grew up and had to be killed. Yeah, and some, maybe, they'll train to hunt us.
No, that's impossible. No human being.
Yes, they will. There's men who'll do it gladly. If one of them ever comes after me, why?
In the meantime, you and I and others like us, where are we to live when the Martians own the Earth?
I've got it all figured out. We'll live underground. I've been thinking about the sewers under New York. There are miles and miles of them. The main ones are big enough for anybody. And there's cellars, vaults, underground storerooms, railway tunnels, subways. You begin to see, hey? We'll get a bunch of strong men together. No weak ones! That rubbish out!
As you meant me to go.
Well, I gave you a chance, didn't I?
We won't quarrel about that. Go on.
Well, we've got to make safe places for us to sing, see? We can get all the books we can. Science books! That's where men like you come in, see? We'll raid the museums. We'll even spy on the Martians. It may not be so much that we have to learn before... Hey, listen, just imagine this 4 or 5 of their own fighting machines suddenly start off. Heat rays right and left, and not a Martian in them. Not a Martian in them, see? But men. Men who've learned the way how. It may even be in our time. Gee, imagine having one of them lovely things with a heat ray, wide and free. We turn it on Martians, we turn it on men. We bring everybody down to their knees.
That's your plan.
Yeah, you, me, and a few more of us. We own the world.
I see.
Hey, what's the matter? Where are you going?
Not to your world. Bye, stranger. Well, after parting with the artilleryman, I came at last to the Holland Tunnel. I entered that silent tube, anxious to know the fate of the great city on the other side of the Hudson. Cautiously, I came out of the tunnel and made my way up Canal Street. I reached 14th Street, and there again were black powder and several bodies, and an evil, ominous smell coming through the gratings from several of the houses. I wandered up through the 30s and 40s. I stood alone on Times Square. I caught sight of a lean dog running down 7th Avenue with a piece of dark brown meat in his jaws and a pack of starving mongrels at his heels. He made a wide circle around me as though he feared I might prove a fresh competitor. I walked up Broadway in the direction of that strange powder, past silent shop windows, displaying their mute wares to empty sidewalks, past the Capitol Theatre, silent, dark, past a shooting gallery, where a row of empty guns faced an arrested line of wooden ducks. Near Columbus Circle, I noticed models of 1939 motor cars in the showrooms facing empty streets. From over the top of the General Motors building, I watched a flock of black birds circling in the sky. I hurried on. Suddenly, I caught sight of a Martian machine standing somewhere in Central Park, gleaming in the late afternoon sun. An insane idea. I rushed recklessly across Columbus Circle and into the park. I climbed a small hill above the pond at 60th Street, and I stood there. And from there, I could see, standing in a silent row along the mall, 19 of those great metal titans, their cowls empty, their steel arms hanging listlessly by their sides. I looked in vain for the monsters that inhabit those machines. Suddenly, my eyes were attracted to an immense flock of blackbirds that hovered directly below me. They circled to the ground, and there before my eyes, stark and silent, lay the Martians, with the hungry birds pecking and tearing brown shreds of flesh from their dead bodies. Later, when the bodies were examined in the laboratories, it was found that they were killed by a putrefactive bacterium against which their systems were unprepared. Slain, after all man's defenses had failed, by the humblest thing that God in his wisdom has put upon this earth. Before the cylinder fell, there was a general persuasion that through all or the deep of space, no life existed beyond the petty surface of our minute sphere. Now we see further. Dim and wonderful is the vision I've conjured up in my mind of life spreading slowly from this little seedbed of the solar system throughout the inanimate vastness of sidereal space. But that's a remote dream. It may be that the destruction of the Martians is only a reprieve. To them, and not to us, is the future ordained, perhaps. Strange, it now seems to sit in my peaceful study at Princeton, writing down this last chapter of the record, begun at a deserted farm in Grover's Mill. Strange to watch children playing in the streets. Strange to watch young people strolling on the green where the new spring grass heals the last black scars of a bruised earth. Strange to watch the sightseers enter the museum where the disassembled parts of a Martian machine are kept on public view. Strange when I recall the time when I first saw it. Bright and clean cut, hard and silent, under the dawn of that last great day. This is Orson Welles, ladies and gentlemen, out of character to assure you that the War of the Worlds has no further significance than as the holiday offering it was intended to be, the Mercury Theatre's own radio version of dressing up in a sheet and jumping out of a bush and saying, "Boo!" Starting now, we couldn't soap all your windows and steal all your garden gates by tomorrow night. So we did the next best thing. We annihilated the world before your very ears and utterly destroyed the Columbia Broadcasting System. You will be relieved, I hope, to learn that we didn't mean it, and that both institutions are still open for business. So goodbye, everybody. And remember, please, for the next day or so, the terrible lesson you learned tonight. That grinning, glowing, globular invader of your living room is an inhabitant of the pumpkin patch. And if your doorbell rings and nobody's there, that was no Martian. It's Halloween.
Lobby's full of cops and reporters, Orson!
I know, it's incredible. I saw all of them. It could go on for 83 years.
St. Louis, Missouri. Hysteria bordering on panic was afforded here in the local area. Southwestern Telephone Company's lines were jammed with calls from the east for half an hour. CBS outlet was swamped with 700 calls.
Washington, D.C. In the wake of the Martian broadcast, floods of calls from local law enforcement tied up lines for more than 30 minutes. Frightened callers tried to flee from what they thought was an alien invasion. Some began by moving household furniture.
Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Unbelievable scenes took place locally. One man reported that he rushed home and found his wife in the bathroom with a bottle of poison in her hands, screaming, "I'd rather die this way than like that."
Seattle, Washington. Many people here thought the imaginary Martian invasion had reached Washington state. Calls from as far as 200 miles poured into newspapers, police stations, and radio bureaus by the thousands.
In the days that followed, headlines around the world reported on the atmosphere of terror that spread over America on this October night. It is estimated now that approximately 6 million people heard the fateful broadcast, and that over a million had believed it to be real. There is no record of the countless others to whom they communicated their mass hysteria. Many factors were blamed for what had driven America beyond the edge of blind panic on this night. But in the end, only one remained: the frightening ability of a young medium to plunge a world into terror from the sound of the spoken word.